welcome to Found in Translation, a weekly-ish exploration of one fellow's translation of the Christian scriptures, one chapter or two at a time. I'm Brandon Rhodes, and across the internet from me is the translator himself, Brandon Johnson. Hi, Brandon.
Hey, Brandon.
And this week, we are not even going to be talking about your translation, or at least not for much of it. This is a bonus episode. We often, before we record, after we record, talk about and compare over the course of the week. We're texting back and forth, comparing his translation decisions to other translations. No surprise, those conversations get spicy. And not in the exciting way, but in the cursing and teasing and funny way. So we are going to be reflecting on a variety of popular Bible translations in the United States, and we're going to give them a tier list. We're going to rank them from S. I don't know what S stands for. Supreme?
Superior? I don't know.
Superior? Yeah. We're not normally in the hierarchies here. But...
Let's go with Super Mario.
Okay, yeah. The Super Mario tier. A,
Yeah.
B, C, and F. Okay. So hopefully this will also be a fun chance for all of you to be getting acquainted with the range of translations that are out there, and maybe find one that will complement what is, I'm sure, your otherwise exclusive use of the Liberation and Inclusion translation.
I mean, who uses anything else?
Yeah. And, it's worth saying up front, there are all kinds of ways to esteem and rank these translations. Some of them are just, do we like how they read? Some of them, there's a familiarity, there's a connection to the kind of historic cadence and words that we're used to. Some of them, we're going to evaluate them based on how faithful or unfaithful they are to the Greek. There's the cringe factor. There's, is it sexist? Is it actually like is it faithful to the Greek, but not in some way, but maybe not faithful to Jesus? Yeah, there's a few ways to hear this. So it's ultimately, this is just a vibe check.
Yeah, it makes me think of the translation commitments that we identified when developing the website. There's the 6. So faithfulness to the text, trying to get like the Greek within context and culture. Like, there's more to translating than just looking up in the lexicon and going with the first entry. But does this work with the Greek language stuff here? Avoiding the religious technical language. I don't know that any of them really hit that one, except, maybe the message does. The message hits that one. Yeah, like maybe too much.
Too much.
Reading with the oppressed, being trauma-informed, God always looks like Jesus, and emphasizing belovedness and belonging. So those are the explicit ones here, which probably implied by several of those actually is being anti-authoritarian, but it's not explicitly stated there. But we can explicitly state that as one of our commitments.
Okay. First up, the New Living Translation. So the New Living Translation was somewhere in between more traditional, formal translations and like the Message. It had a lot more kind of vernacular and softness.
Solidly a dynamic translation, very much taking a thought and putting it in the translation committee's own words, kind of thing. It was the update to the Living Bible, fun fact.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so which was a paraphrase, solidly, and not always accurate. Like, for instance, it talked about Jerusalem, where it mentioned like the capital of Judea, which in the time period where it wasn't actually Jerusalem at that time. So like there were some mistakes made, but
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
updated to the NLT here.
So it's got its translation problems. It reads mostly fine. Like it does. I think it does a good job of like just how is it to read aloud, but it does seem to fall prey to a lot of the issues of faithfulness to the Greek and like just being stuck in a kind of Christendom way of understanding the sacred story, which is honestly going to be most of these.
Its strength is that it feels accessible. Like it's not going to put people off with language that they're not familiar with as much. So if accessibility is your top priority, go for it. As far as strictly going with the Greek or being liberative or just its theology in general or stance, it's pretty just bland. It's not. You're kind of missing the depth. It's very surface feeling. Yeah.
So what's your rank? What's your vibe check here?
Oh, probably like B, like square in the middle, I would say.
Yeah, I'm tempted to put it in C just because I know there are some translation flubs where it really is just committed to kind of a wrathful God.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, let's start on a positive note. Whoa.
Yeah, I'm just thinking through in comparison to some of the others that we're going to go over.
Yes. Okay. Speaking of, perhaps, let's talk about the message. Eugene Peterson, God rest his soul, wonderful character, and a polarizing translation. What has your experience been like with this thing? The message.
I don't have strong feelings against it per se. Just like it's never one that I reach for. It's kind of when I have reached for it, it's almost more like a game. Like, how silly does this sound?
Yes.
Like, oh, let's hear how this sounds in the message. Kind of, yeah. I know that people think it's beautiful, and I, for a while, tried to go to it for the poetry feeling of it, but it just has always felt a little silly to me.
A little silly is a great way of describing a lot of it. There are places where the message sings and can be quite moving. Was it the unforced rhythms of grace? Like, wow.
Ooh, that's a nice phrase.
Yeah. Isn't that great? You should learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And then there's just all kinds of goofiness. In an attempt to just like, it's so committed to not using the religious technical language at all, or just what feels static or old or crinkly, that it's just, it goes from crinkle to cringe hard.
Yeah.
I've never been able to seriously read it out loud or devotionally. Yeah.
And to be clear, it is unapologetically a paraphrase. It's not claiming to be a translation.
Yeah.
It wasn't from the Greek. It was Eugene Peterson sitting down with his already translated English Bible and like, how can I say this more poetically?
Yes. Which is a great, great thing. And I'm glad that practice of how to produce a Bible is out there and has been so successful. The people I went to seminary with that just were kind of gatekeepy edgelords who were like, oh, it's not a translation.
No, it's not.
But I mean, that's not an interesting point. Like it
has a different purpose.
It has a different purpose, and what they were insinuating was this, because it's not a translation, it's not faithful to the Greek or something like that. And it's like as if translations ever really are. Like, this isn't a real Bible. It can't. I think really what they were saying when they said it's a paraphrase, not a translation, is Therefore, it doesn't carry the magic, the deep magic of the Bible, of being able to be the breath of God. It's not God
Yeah,
inspired.
it's no longer inspired. Yeah.
It's no longer inspired.
Right.
Which is just so small. It makes God so fucking small, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I honestly would want to put this thing in an F tier because I just can't stand reading this, but
based on our criteria for
yeah, based on our
not just
criteria,
what you like, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a gut check too.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah, and just to stick it to the like Calvinist bros that I was going to seminary with, I will not consign it. I will not put my vote towards F tier. Where does it feel for you?
B or C. Yeah, like as long as you know what it is.
Yeah.
Maybe in the B. It certainly leans into the avoiding religious technical language. But it's less about digging into theology at least in an intellectual way, and like I want to have an experience with scripture here and engage with it in that level. So yeah.
How about this? Let's put it in the C tier, and if we realize C is really, really full, I might have a change of heart and we can rank it up.
Okay.
If it's suddenly in company with translations I don't feel comfortable with it being in company with,
sure,
I shall look down from my podcasting throne.
Yeah. And to be clear, this is not at all an indication of how I feel about Eugene Peterson.
No.
Love Eugene Peterson, his writings, and also have a friend who knew him personally, and through that know that he was like a wonderful human being. So
yes, absolutely. All right, next up, another translation not done by committee but by scholar and pastor. In this case, this is the Kingdom New Testament by Bishop N.T. Wright. He was producing, over the course of many years, these Matthew for everyone, Luke, Mark for everyone, Romans for everyone, these commentaries, which I have like 3/4 of the New Testament, and I read through them all.
I have them all in ebook version.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And there, it's a very vernacular commentary series that I think is great. It really, if you want to understand how this scholar who really has been massively formative for me in terms of how I understand the text, if you want to hear an accessible way of understanding it at a like excerpt by excerpt level, these things are great. And so the Kingdom New Testament is just them getting rid of the commentaries and bundling the whole New Testament, that his translation, and having it in that format.
Yeah, I really appreciate so much of N.T. Wright's theology and research and historical putting things in context. It has been very formative for helping me understand. I tend to think that I have taken his foundation and run with it even further than he has as far as the liberative and anti-authoritarian side of things. He's pretty solidly in the hierarchy of the Anglican Church, and it seems fine with that. Yeah. He's also known for being, I don't know if anti-trans, like transphobic. It might be accurate. At least not. If not transphobic, at least not fully affirming. And I think that might also apply to not affirming of just queerness in general.
Yeah, I've never really gotten a clear sense of that from him, but I also haven't really been following him as much.
I don't think he addresses it explicitly a lot, but where he has, he's not affirming.
Yeah. So, yeah, we have found our way, hopefully further along the gospel path. Um, God, I feel so righteous, self-righteous saying it that way. We have parted ways with Bishop
Yeah.
Wright,
Ooh,
even as he's been very formative for us.
yeah. There's a quote that I found about uh, from Wright's commentary on Romans 1.
Mm.
It says, Paul sees the practice of same-sex relations as a sign that the human world in general is out of joint. This out of jointness, he says, is the result of God allowing people to follow lust wherever it leads, once they have lost their grip on God's truth, and like Adam and Eve in the garden, listen to the voice of the creature rather than the voice of God.
Yikes.
So that right there bumps it down. Certainly not S tier.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's definitely got some translation commitments. Not just in. I mean, you're speaking to an interpretive, but something I found in reading him is he often seems to have a commitment to his tradition that is like a bit in the mouth that swerves him away
Mm-hmm.
from the natural conclusion that you would expect. So he has all this, like, he helped popularize among at least like evangelicals this like sense that, uh, when Paul says Jesus is Lord, that means Caesar is not. He's got this. He helped
Mm-hmm.
open our eyes
Perfect.
to all of the coded anti-imperialism in the Bible
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some
So
really,
helpful.
really great ways. And he seems weirdly comfortable with state religion. And his
Mm-hmm.
thing about like Romans 13, like, I'm not going to ask him to be like a Christian anarchist here, but at least like push a little harder, like lean into the discomfort of the historic way of holding those verses, and he just
Mm-hmm.
kind of gets stuck there, or he like dodges like the nonviolence that Jesus seems to clearly teach. um
Mm-hmm.
and these sort of things to me just like indicate he's a product of the structures that have cared for him for a long time. But yeah, in the case of this translation, we are not judging him as much as what is this Bible translation
Right, right.
like?
Where we're putting the rankings isn't him and his theology. It's
Yeah, yeah.
this specific translation. Yeah.
I think we both needed to get something out of us about how,
Yes. Yeah.
like, it's like, oh man, Dad's gone down a weird path.
Yeah. As far
I
as
give
the
it.
Romans 6 or the Romans 1 translation, it's pretty neutral. It's not actively trying to be liberative, but not
Mm-hmm.
leaning extra hard into it in 1 Corinthians 6, and I assume 1 Timothy 1 as well. He uses uh, practicing homosexuals in the list of,
Yeah.
which is just not what the word means. Um, so definitely not S tier. Other than those few passages,
Yeah.
though, in general, it's really positive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
I want to
so
give it
A or
A.
B. I might go A with that strong caveat of those handful of verses.
Yeah. It definitely misses the mark on something that is important, very important, especially in these times. But
Mm-hmm.
man, it's a delightful translation to read that
Yeah,
is otherwise
he
quite faithful.
yeah, and at least one thing that it does is it's inclusive of women in ways that a lot of them are not. So
True. Yeah. True, true, true. Okay, next one. Going to be one of the most popular translations, I think, out there. The NIV, New International Version. Okay. We've got a fart noise from
uh-huh.
the translator. Say more. That's spectacular.
I mean, it's really theologically loaded in all the ways that I don't agree with. So
Mm-hmm.
there's just that.
Yeah.
Um, so lots of leaning into translation decisions in the opposite way that I would lean into the range of what are possible meanings.
Yep.
Um, it's really it's similar to the NLT in the everything's kind of flattened out. It's the new international version, which the international is like it intentionally uses a really small vocabulary, a number of words in English, in order to be able to have people from around the world with different English dialects all be able to understand it.
Yeah.
Which is a good goal, but it ends up kind of dumbing it down.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. It's what I grew up reading. In terms of like readability or orality, I've found it to mostly be pleasant to find. There's just a familiarity to it. Something that I have
It's what I did
appreciated.
most of my verse memorizations in growing up. So
Same.
it feels
Same.
very familiar.
Yeah, very familiar. One thing I'll give it credit for is not so much translation as whoever holds the keys to that kingdom has been willing to use it to translate or to be published in a way like that matters a lot to me, which is having a print edition that does not have chapter or verse notation, nor does it have section headers. It's not been a popular printing, but there was the books of the Bible printing, which had extraordinarily good per book intros. And then I should have put this on the list, but it's not a translation; it's a formatting. They ordered it. They ordered the canon because there's no right way to order the New Testament anyway. The Christian scriptures, they ordered it as, let's see, it was a rhythm of the four gospels with books that would kind of complement it. So it was like Matthew, James, Jude, and
some
I
of the
think
more
maybe
Hebraic flavored.
Yeah, Hebrews, and I think the Petrine epistles.
Okay.
And then no, Mark, and then and 1-2 Peter.
I was going to say I would have thought Peter would go with Mark.
Yeah, and then Luke, Acts, all the Pauls.
So so Zondervan is willing to do some interesting things with its printings.
Exactly, and then John and Johannine, and then Revelation. I loved it, and I love being able to read the Bible as literature.
Yeah.
None of that, any of these translations could be done that way, and they all friggin'
any of them
should.
could be. Yeah.
So I'm not attached to this. I'd give it a C or an F.
I'm with you on the C or F. One of the examples that comes to mind is that they translate sarx, traditionally flesh, as sin nature or sinful nature.
Oh, F tier, right there.
Yeah, it's they had such an influence in emphasizing just the default badness of humans. That is just not in the Greek.
Yeah. And they have had a few back and forths on gender stuff as well, translating it sisters and brothers instead of brothers. So they tried making some steps in the right direction.
I think the newest version of it does do that still.
It does, yeah. Okay, speaking of that, the Inclusive Bible. Tell me about the Inclusive Bible.
Yeah, the Inclusive Bible is interesting. It's a dynamic equivalent, almost to the level of paraphrase in some places. But its commitment is to be, inclusive, primarily around gender, which what makes this one in particular unique is that it also does that when referring to God. Which I don't know of any other translations that do that. So it's never referring to God in the masculine. Jesus, yes, but God, no. To the point where it kind of skirts around father in the New Testament by translating it as Abba, which is just Aramaic for father.
Yeah.
But because it's not the English word father, it has less of the masculine flavor to it for English readers.
Uh-huh.
So, Yeah, I haven't read it thoroughly enough to like know how like faithful to the Greek it is in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, it's really committed to being very inclusive. I don't think it does anything to try to be explicitly inclusive for queer folks or trans folks or that. It's much more about including women, I think,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
um, which is a wonderful goal. But so I think it S or A is where I would put it.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
A because of its willingness to bend the notes a little bit more than I would in some ways, and not explicit enough in bending the notes in other ways. But
And did you say which translation it was building off of? Is it like kind of a
I'm not
branch off
sure
of the
about that history
NRSV?
of it.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I would have to look it up, but
I'm
it's like
willing to give it
it was
A.
done by like the Priests for Equality or something like that was the group that originated
That's
it. Yeah,
delightful. Yeah, I'd give it a
yeah,
B or an A. So let's meet at A.
cool.
Right next to Tom Wright. There, it'll osmosis some good energy towards Tom.
There you go.
Okay, next up, the Jerusalem Bible, which is the official Bible of our sisters and brothers in the Roman Church.
Hmm.
I am not super familiar with it.
Yeah, I haven't spent a ton of time reading it, but where I have, I've had mixed experiences with it. I actually
Hmm.
really appreciate some of it, particularly Hebrew Bible sections, like
Yeah.
especially the Psalms and Prophets. I think
Hmm.
kind of it's beautiful
Hmm.
in those sections.
Hmm.
My experience with it in the New Testament has been less than thrilling. Um, it's not super great on gender inclusion. It's not as bad as it could be. Um, it's very much emphasizes Catholic theology.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
so, which it totally makes sense. So I'm not really faulting it for that, but it's not where I would lean. Um,
Yeah. I'd
so
give it. I would.
it has some
Go ahead.
strengths and some weaknesses. So I'm thinking
Mm.
kind of middle. It's like C, like
Okay. Uh,
B or C.
yeah. Yeah. I think all your points are exactly what I had in my head. I really like reading the Hebrew Bible in the Jerusalem translation.
Mhm.
I hadn't read in it in a while, and then I just finished Richard Aurore's newest book, The Tears of Things. It's about the prophets,
Mm.
and all the excerpts, I was struck by the kind of beauty of the translation, and that really is an important register to be considering these on, not just readability or familiarity or faithful. Is there a beauty to this?
Hmm.
And I think it does that quite well. Again, I agree. You will see it toe the party line
Hmm.
in the Christian texts, but
Yeah,
yeah. So let's give it. I'd give it B.
sure.
You want B?
Let's throw it in B.
Let's start in B. Okay. Okay. Next up, speaking of historic uh, translations that are grounded very authoritatively in a tradition, we've got everyone's favorite fighting translation, King James, the
Ah,
KJV,
yes.
the Bible translation that pisseth against the wall.
Yeah, my opinion actually has shifted somewhat on this one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as I've been doing my translation and then like kind of doing my vibe checks to compare what I'm coming up with others, or I'm like, I'm not sure what to do with this. What have others done? Um, I've actually been surprised at how often I side with the King James against other more recent translations in some ways. There are other things where it's just not good either. And the manuscripts that it's of the original text that it was working with are outdated. Didn't have the Dead Sea Scrolls. Didn't was working off a very limited, and I don't want to go into textual criticism too much, but the Greek that it was working off of is not the best version of the Greek.
They did not have the Nestle Island.
Right. It was also commissioned by King James to explicitly replace the Matthew Bible, which needed replacing, in his opinion, because it was too anti-authoritarian. And
well,
and wanted one that would shore up his power better.
mm-hmm.
So it leans heavily on supporting tyrants, and whether that's of a nation or within a household. And for that reason, it gets boosted real low for me. And in addition to that, because pretty much all other, at least popularly used English translations are grounded in the tradition of this one, the King James here, it screwed up the whole history of English Bible translations as far as I'm concerned. So I might give it an F with certain moments that bump it towards a C to me, but
F plus.
yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think I'll join you on the F tier for it. And this is, in my mind, I'm including the new King James version, which is the one that has replaces the these and thous with.
Yeah, it might actually be worse because it feels like it's been updated and modernized, but still like doubles down on all the bad stuff.
You can't scruff its hair and say, there, you little authoritarian shit from 300, 400 years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's put it in the F tier. Sorry, King James. Authoritarian commitments are the worst. Let's contrast that with this one. Have you heard of this? The Liberation and Inclusion translation?
Huh. I haven't heard of that one. Yeah. What's the story?
Some guy was freaked out about his daughters reading the Bible, so he translated his own.
Okay.
Yeah.
So single translator, not a committee.
Exactly. Yeah. So you're in good. The translator is in good company on this list with N.T. Wright and David Bentley Hart coming up later. Yeah. Obviously, this one's easy. Let's put this in the S tier.
Yeah. Follows all our commitments.
It follows all the commitments of itself.
Right.
How has what's the vibe check for you on what the current product feels like? Are you enjoying the the readability? Like, how has it been reading this in a worship setting?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest detractor for me, is the readability. And even actually for myself, some of the things that I've done really intentionally to be liberative and correct for things like anti-Semitism, like having Mary be translated as Miriam. When I'm reading it in a group of other people, I'm really aware of how distracting, maybe even confusing that could be. So on my update going through, I haven't decided whether I'm going to change that back to the more traditional or leave it as is. Either way, it would get a footnote. But things like that make me kind of cringe a little bit when I'm using it in a worship setting. Also, just it could flow a little better for reading out loud. Sure. It's definitely more geared towards study than liturgy.
Yep. Yeah.
Which I would like to smooth it out a little bit to have it at least be more easily used for liturgy, even if that's not its primary focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a well said. It has so many strengths, and that has been the only like kind of complication or twitch to it
Mm-hmm.
in my reading of it. That said, that doesn't to me drop it down to A. Should we put this in the S tier?
Let's do it.
Sisters and brothers and everybody, we have our first S tier Bible translation. There we go. Spectacular. Um, I was not ready for that. All right, moving right along. The New Revised Standard Version. There's a few different versions of the New Revised Standard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Updated edition being the most recent.
yeah, NRSV lowercase UE. Yeah, this one is in keeping broadly with the translation tradition in language of the King James, but has really found its own ground. This is the translation that is most popularly used in mainline traditions, as well as the most popular non-evangelical study Bible is, I would say, the New Oxford, and it uses the NRSV as well. So if you go into an Episcopal or Anglican church, you're going to be hearing this translation. If you go into a United Methodist church, rather, you're going to be hearing this translation. I'll speak for myself and say I broadly enjoy it. It does make a lot of translation. It's so settled into the tradition in terms of like what the story is, and using religious technical language, righteousness and justification and sanctification, all those sorts of things that I think really kind of fuck up how we read the Bible.
Yeah.
That said, I think it's a nice translation. Like,
it is. It is. There are definitely moments where I would have wished for more from it. But overall, it is very positive in my experience. Even a good example of from the updated edition, 1 Corinthians 9 and 10, where often many will do homosexuality or people who practice homosexuality. It reads male prostitutes.
Good job, guys.
And men who engage in illicit sex, leaving it up for which I don't think that's what that one actually means. I think that is more critiquing people of leisure and means, but the word there is literally soft. But
that's right, soft boys.
Yeah, but so I think I would give this one a solid A.
Yeah, I would too. Let's put it there. Good
Pretty
job, NRSV.
Close to S, but solid A, I think.
Solid A.
A plus, maybe.
Yeah, A plus plus. Okay, moving along. We've got the NET. This is something you've been referencing or cross-checking when you do your translation, right?
I use it a lot for two reasons. One, that it has a really, really, really useful online tool where you can interface with the Greek. And it has a lot of tools built into that. That's been very helpful. It has over 10,000 footnotes, mostly translation footnotes, cross-references, sometimes like theological commentary, which I rarely agree with when that's what it is. But that said, the actual translation work of itself is pretty disappointing. So the things that it's the notes, the tools that it provides lead. Its strength is in being transparent and helping people do their own work and do their own work to understand and learn. I love that. I love that goal. The conclusions of the committee that led to the word choices that they used, I'm typically disappointed with.
So the coming to the conclusion piece, that's just to clarify, that's not so much inherent to this translation as it is how it's available online, the nature, the way that they format
that is what I like about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The actual translation decisions that they make are regrettable, to say the least. It's very evangelical, very penal substitution, sinful nature leaning. It adds things into it that are like weirdly leaning in that direction that are not in the original language. So like when it talks about whoever causes the least of these to stumble, they translate that as causes the least of these to sin. Sin is not the word there. In Galatians 1, where it talks about, where most translations do let them be accursed, it does let them be condemned to hell, which is not the Greek there. So it makes some weird leaps toward awfulness that are outside the scope of the Greek.
So this is going to be an F-, I'm taking it.
I would, because of the commitment to transparency, I would probably put it at a C. But
what? Hang on.
I really, really appreciate that.
So my celebration of the NIV being one of the only translations that is formatted occasionally in a way that makes sense to me. And that didn't push it out of F, and it's less bad as a translation than the NET.
In those, sinful nature is pretty bad. No, you might have convinced me. Yeah, it's the apparatus, the stuff around the translation that I like, not the translation itself.
Right. Yeah. The ideal translation for us is going to be one that's also going to be available, verseless and chapterless, and online with really good, robust accessibility to pop in the hood on the text.
Yeah. Although maybe NIV doesn't belong in F2 because they have gone into like brothers and sisters, and I'm just thinking like King James, our other least favorite that we haven't gotten to yet. Like those are solid F minuses. I would prefer NIV and NET to both of those.
Okay. How about this? Let's put this in C tier, and then we're going to do a quick check by the end of this list and adjust anything as we see it. If it just doesn't feel like you're saying, like there's a couple of these that are definitely worse than the NIV and the NET.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put it in C. Are we not merciful? All right, the NASB, the New American Standard Bible. I had never heard of this translation until I went to seminary at a dispensationalist Baptist seminary, and it was the required translation to have a copy of, and it prided itself, and they revered it because they thought it was the only one to translate consistently from the Greek. If the Greek it uses any specific Greek word will always be translated the same throughout the entire Bible, even though well,
that's not how language works.
It's psychotically in denial of how language works.
Yeah.
So there's only one English word for each Greek word, no matter
even though there's
what.
only a vocabulary of about 600 Hebrew words and about 1,300 Greek words, and there's something like 2 million words in the English language.
Right? Yeah. Polyphony and manifold meaning is lost on the NASB. It also is typically formatted in a way that has it's like, here's a verse, carriage return, next verse, carriage return, next verse. So it is not formatted. Like, there is no sane reason to format it like that. It's not good liturgically. It's not good devotionally. It's disloyal to the text as literature. It is heinous.
Wow.
Yeah,
I'm guessing this is going really low for you. As someone who has done a lot of Greek, been a Greek student for several years in seminary and stuff, it was very helpful in practicing. It was a great reference for a first year Greek student. But that's partly because it does the very wooden literal, like kind of just takes the first option in the dictionary of what this word could mean in English and inserts it into place.
Yeah.
So occasionally I do still reference it for that reason, just like, am I even on the right track here? Mm-hmm. Is like what I'm even considering. I usually don't end up making the same decision as it makes, but it helps me just kind of clear my head a little.
Okay.
I don't really have anything else positive to say about it than that, but
yeah, I this is an F tier for me. Where is it for you?
I would have put it C tier probably, but I wouldn't fight too hard to keep it out of F. Yeah.
Put it in F. Thank you. Again, there will be a mercy seat round as well. All right, the next one is new to me as of this morning that we're recording it. The CSB. What the heck is that?
Yeah, it's the Christian Standard Bible, which
it's good sure what year, but standard one.
Right. And it used to be the older edition of it used to be called the Holman Christian Standard Bible. It is I don't know if it's official, but it is the one that is used by Southern Baptists.
Okay.
Which Southern Baptist is the largest single denomination in the United States. So there's a lot of people use this.
So wait, that's the denomination that was founded to justify slavery and the Confederacy. Am I remembering that right?
I don't think they want you to talk about that, but yes.
Okay, I think that's the one. Okay, so continue.
Yes. It's also the one that was a few years ago discovered that there was a list at the headquarter level of known sexual abuse by pastors and leaders throughout the denomination, people that was intentionally hidden and hushed up, like maybe hundreds of names. So yeah, not a fan of Southern Baptist denomination in general. Yeah. As far as the translation itself goes, because I'm not a fan of Southern Baptist denomination, I expected not to be a fan of this translation, and I'm routinely pleasantly surprised. It's actually better than most of the other widely used ones in many places. Wow. Most of the time that I look. It's not enough to get an A spot, or definitely not an S spot, but I'm routinely pleasantly surprised by it.
Okay. And I think you said before recording that it even some egalitarians find it to be, because
yeah, there's a woman named Marg Maukso, I think is how you pronounce her name. She's a egalitarian, not feminist. She's pretty evangelical. I don't think she likes the word feminist. Bible scholar, Greek scholar, and this is her preferred translation from an egalitarian perspective.
An egalitarian evangelical perspective that is not as
right.
Engaged,
inclusive to women, but theologically evangelical otherwise.
Okay. So you said this is a B tier for you?
I would probably put this B tier. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of smack dab in the middle.
I have never encountered it, so I'll trust your decision on that one. Okay. This next one is David Bentley Hart's The New Testament, a translation. David Bentley Hart is the most well-known Orthodox theologian in the Anglophone world. He teaches at Notre Dame and has written many, many works and is known to be able to slap the shit out of people who disagree with him. He is he doesn't
pull any punches.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he's brazen. And also a very eloquent, forceful voice for universalism, which is a great thing to have somebody who doesn't pull punches advocating for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think this is a fantastic translation. Overall, it's a little weird in some ways. Like
Mm-hmm.
in some ways it's like NASB-esque in the sense of intentionally very literal, but I think in a more coherent way.
Yes.
Um, it's not it's not just opening the dictionary to the first entry and okay, I guess I got to go with that. It's very thoughtful in its literal approach.
Yeah.
It's just like David Bentley Hart doesn't pull any punches. Um, I think its theology is really well grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some really really good footnotes in there that helps explain things. So I have a very positive experience with this one. I'd probably go A tier on this one.
Okay. Great.
Maybe S. The main thing that would kick it back out of S is the kind of the accessibility of the language. But
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I've read several of his theology books, but not read too deeply from his translation, bits and pieces. And yeah, I tended to have a lot of fun in the footnotes. So
mm-hmm,
I also just generally enjoy. I have a sympathy for translations like these other two that are high up, yours and T. Wright's, because they're honest about their opinionatedness.
mm-hmm,
Um, one really, it's sort of this endemic to the academic instinct, but I think modernist of um, being objective or pretending like you don't have an opinion or a bias in
mm-hmm.
translating.
It's just
There,
just not possible.
it's not possible. Really, we should have said this at the beginning of the episode. It's not
Right.
possible to have a unbiased translation. You're always making interpretive decisions, and that's part of why.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, things like the NASB claiming it's objective is just raw sewage.
mm-hmm,
So I have a sympathy as long as they're not coming from a dominationist or authoritarian notion of the divine and therefore
mm-hmm.
what it means to be human. If they're not, as long as their bias isn't in that direction, I'm appreciative of the honesty of, yeah, this is an opinionated translation.
Mm-hmm.
Even if
Yeah.
in this case it's a bit wooden, but it's just built into it that this is how DBH is
Yeah.
going to be thinking it through.
Yeah. Comparing this to N.T. Wright's, like, I think I like the translation decisions, the theology of it, better than N.T. Wright's. The readability
Mm-hmm.
leans in favor of N.T. Wright's. Um, so they both have different strengths, I think.
Right. All right. So it's between S and A for you. Which one do you want?
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Part of me just wants to have something else in S tier, but I've not read it enough to be able to go with that. So what I'm hearing from you is A.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Okay. A tier. All right. All right. Two left. The CEB, Common English Bible. Is that right?
Yes. No. Yes. Common English
Yep.
Bible.
Great.
There's another CEV, Contemporary English Version, which is not good.
Yeah. Right.
But so CEB as in Bible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
what's up with this one?
Um, Mostly really positive things to say about this one.
Mm-hmm.
Shares a lot of the same commitments and values that the Lit Bible does. I wish it would be. It's very inclusive. It's its biggest strength. It does lean very liberatory in its focus. Fits well with liberation theology for the most part. I Because I have such high hopes and such a positive view of it overall, I'm routinely disappointed by it because I want it to go just a little bit further.
Sure.
Um, so it maintains language like rebellious and obedience, that assumes an authoritarian hierarchy that disappoints me. So that's what knocks it out of the S tier for me.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But overall, I think it's really good. Um, there are times where maybe it's a little bit less literal to the Greek than my preference would be, but again, that's like literal is not the test of faithful.
No.
Um, so I would give it a solid A, I think. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, you introduced me to it, and I've routinely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Both it does a great job at readability, and some
Mm-hmm.
level of
Yeah.
familiarity. I think familiarity
Yeah.
is
It's a
something
more
that matters.
comfortable readability than, like, say, the NRSV, but
Yep.
the theology is pretty similar as far as the bias that it has. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. A tier for that. Lastly, the
Yeah. Is there
ESV.
something worse than F?
Yeah.
I don't know.
G.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
This
the
one's rough.
ESV, which we call the extra sexist version, I recently saw someone online refer to it as the especially sexist version. So
Or extra
we're on the
shitty
same
version.
wavelength.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. Yeah, it is the one that actually was created in reaction to when the NIV first started thinking about translating Adelphoi as brothers and sisters instead of just as brothers.
Like 25 years
They
ago.
got wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got wind of that. Yeah, the ESV was published in 2007. Um,
20 years
they
ago.
got wind of that decision, and four guys, James Dobson, I think, Wayne Grudem, uh, R.C. Sproul, I think. I have to. These are the names that are coming to mind. And John Piper went to Zondervan and threatened them. They're like, "Hey, we have this huge following within exactly the demographic population that you people that read your Bible, and if you do that, if you include and sisters, we are going to tell all the people who listen to us not to read your Bible."
Oh my god.
And Zondervan listened and killed it for a time. They have since gone ahead and done it. But because that was starting to be a momentum shift in the culture of not just the NIV, but others wanting to be more gender inclusive and affirming to women, weirdly, um, they decide that those people led by Wayne Grudem decided, you know what, we need to create our own translation. So they bought the rights to the RSV, which is actually the antecedent to the NRSV as well, and did their own translation. And by translation, I mean they left 92% of it identical to the RSV. Um, and the other 8% of it was essentially just updating the language from like these and thous to modern vocabulary and changing things to be even more patriarchal than they were in the RSV. Um, so, for instance, in Genesis, where the curses are being given in chapter 3, uh, your desire will be for your husband, most say. Um, they translate that as the desires will be like against your husband. I don't remember the exact wording, but the word is against that they use, which is not that Hebrew word cannot mean against. It never means against. But they want to set up this uh, competition between men and women with the implication that men are supposed to win that competition. Um, so yeah, there have been updates since that original 2007 version. So like that ratio of 92% identical to 8% changed has changed since then. But that's how it started. So, and if anything, it's
Yikes.
just gotten worse.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. It's the only Bible I've thrown away. Um,
mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm not donating this. I'm throwing it away. Yeah, this is an easy F tier. let's put that thing in its spot.
Yeah. They claim to be the most literal translation other than the NASB, which is just wrong. My translation, as I compare it, is routinely more literal. What they mean by literal is patriarchal.
Yeah, it's basically like a dick graffitied over the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's gross. Okay, here we are. We are at the completion. Let's do one final review in case there's any fine tunings. In the S tier, we have the Liberation and Inclusion translation. Whoop. The that was
that's
right. In the A tier, we have N.T. Wright's Kingdom New Testament. We have the Inclusive Bible, the NRSV UE. We have David Bentley Hart's the New Testament. We have the Common English or CEB Bible. In the B tier, we have New Living Translation, the Jerusalem Bible, and the CSB. That's the Southern Baptist one. C tier gets the Message and NET. F tier gets NIV, KJV, NASB, and ESV. Any of those that you want to move up or down?
If it were just up to me, I'd probably put NIV and NASB in C. But just because I like them better than KJV and ESV.
Yeah, you want a tier lower.
But I don't have a strong feeling about needing to move it.
Okay. Yeah.
But otherwise, it looks good to me. Yeah.
I think this is it, man. This is great. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate the wisdom and insight that you've brought from all of your work and nerdery to helping me learn more about a few of these translations and helping me appreciate many of them more and a couple of them less.
Yes. Same from your part on that one. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, everybody, for your company on this leg of the journey. The easiest way to support Found in Translation is to leave us a rating or review on whatever podcast or player you've been enjoying this on, especially YouTube and Apple Podcasts. That makes it easier for more people to find the show because you're telling the robots that you enjoyed this. You can find us on Facebook as Found in Translation. You can read the Liberation and Inclusion translation. That's an S tier translation.
Woohoo!
At www.litbible.net and follow its developments on Threads and Blue Sky as @lit.bible. You can follow Brandon Johnson on Blue Sky as @litbible.net. You can follow me on Threads or Blue Sky as @BDRhodes. The music you're listening to is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Found in Translation was produced on unceded Chinook and Kalapuya land. Goodbye, Brandon.
Bye, Brandon.
Bye, everybody.